Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome to the first live show of Visual Studio Toolbox in 2022. Super exciting. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson, and to kick things off this year, we're going to be talking about some XAML action. And to do that, I am joined today by Dimitri Lyland, who's a principal program manager on the XAML team. Welcome, Dimitri.
Hi, Leslie. It's good to be here. I'm so honored to be the first show of the new year, and you really couldn't have picked a better topic, but I'm a little biased.
No worries. XAML is a really cool topic, and I think it's pretty popular. I mean, popular enough to have a ton of new features available for it in Visual Studio 2022 officially, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really fun. We've been working on new features for XAML for a very long time now. I've been on the team, oh geez, I think over 2 years. Time is flies. I guess I'm close to three because I had a baby. So I use him as my guide, how old he is. I know I know how long I've been here at PM. So about 2.5 years, something like that. Yeah, we've built a lot of great features for XAML developers. We started in 2019. So some of the stuff that we'll talk about today is available if you're still in 2019, but 2022 continues to push the boundary. We've added a bunch of new stuff that's only available there, and we're not stopping. We've got features shipping at almost every preview, so I'm excited to talk to you all about it today.
That's great. Yeah, I think using kids for roadmaps is pretty good. Like I don't have that roadmap, so when people ask how long I've been at Microsoft, I'm like, well, I don't know. Like,
yeah, it starts to blur.
I don't know. Yeah, I forget how old I am sometimes. Even like I don't know anymore. What is time, especially nowadays?
It is so hard. Yeah, and don't ask me how old I am. I've actually messed that question up in the last couple of years a few times. It's very embarrassing. Like, how old are you? Like, how old do I think I am, or
Yeah.
how old am I legally? That should be the difference, I think.
Right. Yeah, my cousin asked me that question like back when I was visiting in Florida for the holidays, and I had to think about it, and I gave the wrong answer, and I didn't realize it until like 10 minutes later. I was like, oh wait, no, it's this other. Wait, whoops.
Yeah,
Oh
we
gosh.
do what we can.
Yep, we try. We try.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm excited to learn about XAML and what's new for it in VS 2022, as I'm sure the audience is as well. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Dimitri, feel free to put them in the chat. We're more than happy to help answer them. And yeah, I guess to start off, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what just a broad overview of the new stuff available in XAML?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I love to talk about myself and XAML. Those are two of my favorite topics. So, yeah, so I'm Dimitri. I'm a program manager on the .NET team officially. That's kind of where I live. But I work on Visual Studio features, and sometimes that isn't clear to people outside of Microsoft. They're like, well, if you're a .NET PM, you work on .NET. But I'm like, yeah, but .NET and Visual Studio are very much tied together. Visual Studio is where the tooling lives, and I've been a tooling PM for a very long time. So XAML tooling is where I've been focused. And more recently, I've also been working on .NET Hot Reload, which is something that lives on both sides of the fence, both inside of Visual Studio and in the runtime and other downstream frameworks. So I've been very lucky because I've got to work with so many wonderful people in our beautiful org where we live here, VS and .NET on both sides of the fence, and work with both runtime teams and the tooling teams that make all those beautiful windows in Visual Studio that do magical things for us. Today in this kind of live stream, we have an hour, so I'm going to do my best to fill it up. We'll start off by talking all about XAML. That's what we promised people we're going to do. And as we go through that, I'll show some .NET Hot Reload as well. And I'll close off, if we have time, by talking a bit more about .NET Hot Reload, because it is such an important part of a XAML developer's experience and their productivity. So that's kind of the flow I'm expecting. Let's see how it goes. Demo gods, let's not snake.
Fingers crossed. New year, new demo god mentality. Hopefully the gods are like in favor
with us. Yeah. Let's see if we need to sacrifice a goat or whatever.
They're very fickle creatures, really.
Yeah. Alrighty, I'm gonna move you off of my main screen so we can go ahead and jump right into the demos. So let's do this. All right, so I want to start off by starting kind of a natural flow in a developer's life cycle. So here we have Visual Studio 2022 open, and for the most part in these demos, I'm going to show you 17.0. So everything I'm showing you is something you can go and download. It's considered production, so it's the version of Visual Studio that's live. And then at the end, if we have time, I'll switch over to 17.1 internal bits. It's basically the next preview that's coming out. And again, that's almost public, so you'll be able to get it pretty soon. And the reason why is because we have some bug fixes that are coming in that release. So I'm going to show you both VSs, but here we are in the GA version. And here as a developer, especially a XAML developer, is a very natural place to be. Your app is not running, and you're looking at your XAML code, and you're looking at your designer. And this is where I'm going to start to talk to you about how we're trying to make your life a bit better. And the first place is design time data. Traditionally, designers have been great for putting controls on the design surface, for maybe moving controls, for selecting them, and looking at their properties, etc. But designers have often been empty, and the reason they're empty is because they have no data inside of them. Now you could fix that. Even years ago, you could have fixed that by creating a proper view model. So your app had to conform to MVVM as a design pattern, and not all people choose to use MVVM. And afterwards, you'd have to mock create code, a one-to-one representation of your real view model, and then attach the view model to your view. And it was just very expensive and cumbersome. And we've decided to make that experience not be the only way you can get design time data, because this blank design surface idea is just not very helpful, right? So we've taken steps to try to alleviate it. So here's already a first example of exactly that. I have something called sorry, not something called, but I have a text block that is trying to show you the title of the page. And the title of the page is actually bound to a property, so in my view model. But I also have something in there, and that's because I have this d:\text in my code. So let's zoom in so I can see both at the same time. So here I have a text box that normally would be empty because we're not running the app, so there is no bound data yet. But because I set the d:\text, I was able to mock the property, create a fake version of the property that only exists during design time. When you start running the application, we strip this out, right? So this goes away, and then we only depend on the real property. So you never have to worry that your design time data is going to leak out into your real app. And it's something that you can share with your team, because now that I've added it and I've committed it to source control, it's available for everybody in my team opening the app to see some data. Now, this is great, right, that you can see the data, but what if you needed to mess around with the data while the app is, again, not running yet? And that is totally possible, right? Because as I'm typing, this is actually working the way you would expect it to work. It's updating in real time. And as already you can see that if this becomes a very long title, that's just not going to work, right? So I'm already getting hints before I even run the app, right? Otherwise, I'd have to run the app and see, oh, my title is too big and it's cutting off or something like that, right?
That's
so
a time saver.
Really. Yeah, it's really, really powerful. And I can even do other stuff. Like I can say to myself, well, let me see what the margins would look like, right? Maybe I want to do some crazy margins. So I want to start playing around with the margins, and I never want this to leak into the production app. So here I have the real margins. This will be the real property that will be used. And here I have the fake property. So again, it's very flexible. You can use it to visualize things for real, as in like trying to match what the data will look like. And you can actually just use it to test stuff. So you can be like, oh, let me see what the margins will look like. And you can remove them. It goes back to using the real margins. So we just prioritize the d:\text property during the designer, and then we ignore it and strip it out when you're running the actual application. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Even just, especially just from like a CSS, HTML-like standpoint, just trying to understand what's happening in your layout. It's so nice to be able to see this all in real time. And just remove the middleman, because it gets so tedious, right? When you're just trying to align a header a certain way on your app. So
yeah, being able to play around with the properties, being able to create some fake data that you can look at is just really nice. Customers have told us, look, we're adding a new view to the application. The view literally has no way to be shown in the real app, and we're trying to design it, but we're struggling because it doesn't look anything like the real view is going to look like when the data gets added. So by giving you design time data, we're stripping away the need for real data, for real navigation, for any of those real things that you might not even have. And we're also giving you a way over time just to be able to visualize things, so that if something changes, you can try it really easily. So if, let's say, these titles I know get longer or shorter, I can change that without ever having to even run my application and eat the expense of building, starting, navigating to the view. We're kind of trying to, like I joke always, we're hard reloading your designer. So because I work in a lot of hard reload technology, so I love that terminology. So I always joke that this is another hot reload technology that we built into the product. But it's, it's not even just for little things, right? It's not just for things like a title, which is very simple. It's for more complicated things as well. Let's go scroll down to my items control, because there's this giant blank space over here, right? Something is going to be here when I run the application. And right now there's nothing there. That's not good. So I'm going to go and take a look. I have an item source, so it's definitely going to load something when I run the app, but I want to show something before the app runs. And this is where we have another really cool feature called d:. I'm going to add a fake item source. This is not the feature yet, but now this is the feature. It's called sample data. We've added this like magical mocking sample data built-in feature that will go ahead and at least give you some idea of what this could look like. So when this will actually run, there really will be boxes about this big, and then there's an item template binding to things, and it's starting to visualize it for me, which is very powerful. And you can even say the item count. So you can add an item count, and you can make this be hold on a second, let me make sure I'm doing this right here. You can change the item count to be how many items you want. This is where the demo gods are going to punish me, aren't they? That's okay. Yeah, I think I broke my markup. Let me see here. Let's see. Let's go back to where it was good. If you break the markup, no, it's definitely not good. All right, let's try this again. Item count 3. That's just a bit weird. Okay, I'm gonna say demo gods, go away for a second. Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, we're gonna fix it, put it back. But I'm gonna show you a different way to add sample data. Not only can you just use our generic feature, you can actually add a much more specific item source, again using d:. So I'm going to uncomment some code that I've written, which will visualize exactly how I think it will look like when the application is running. So now I'm giving the items control an item source as an array, and I'm building that array based on the real entities. So these are real entity classes. Like if you look over here, I have something called city air quality, and this items control is bound to a collection of city air quality items. And here I'm able to mock each one, set the value of each one. So if I want to say okay in each one, I can go ahead and change that here. And I can use this little refresh button we've added. So there's a little refresh button right here that will allow us to refresh arrays. You don't often have to use this button, but when you're changing an item source in this particular situation, it was required. So we gave you the option to hit refresh, and that will rebind the designer to the new value. So now you can see I can start to say, okay, this is what it would look like if it was okay in each one. And then if one of them became much bigger, I can go ahead and I can take a look at that. All right, so that's holding up pretty good. So let's go to bad, good again, and that will look like the original one. All right, so I'm back to where I started. And now I want to show you one more feature of this like kind of end-to-end experience, right? Where I'm taking something that was very blank, I'm adding real data to it, I'm visualizing the data. But now this is a design time experience. Now we might see something that doesn't look right. And in this case, I know that the quality description, this okay, bad, and good, needs to be bold. And that's something I clearly have messed up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to change that. And this is an items template. And we have a feature that's been there for quite some time. If you hold the Alt key down, so I'm going to press Alt, and you click on here, it will actually select the text block inside of the data template.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful. Awesome. Yeah, very cool thing. And so I can say font weight equals to bold. And now font weight. Let's do this with actual right spelling. Let me see here if I have font weight already. Oh, that explains it. Let's remove this one here. There you go. So now I'm able to change that really easily without having to search for this data template, right? Before, how would I do this? I'd be somewhere here and I would be scrolling or doing a Control F to find all the data templates. This Alt click really makes it easy, and it's super easy to find exactly the control. In this case, I needed to Alt click into here and get it to be selected. And I can even change the value, but that's not what we need to do. Another feature that we have once you select the control is something called the XAML Designer Quick Actions. This is another really cool feature that's part of the design time experience. And it's also fairly new. It's a little light bulb that appears when you select a control. And the light bulb appears when you select a control in the data template, when you select the control outside of the data template, even the page. Basically, any valid control that you select, you'll get one of these little quick actions. And what we give you is a curated list of properties. And the way that we provide this curated list is that we know which properties people use that are the most common properties. Now, we only know this about Microsoft built controls. That's the one limitation, but a lot of people depend on them. So especially in the underlying design of their application. So this is really cool that you could have actually set that bold right here if you wanted to, because we know changing bold, italic, font size, color is very, very common. So let's go ahead and actually use that feature to do something. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make these to be much bigger. And look at that. Not quite what I wanted. I'm going to Control Z out of it, but it gives you the idea that once you select the control, you can go ahead and use these quick actions to make changes to it for all of these properties. And we try to visualize horizontal, vertical alignment, margins. It's especially very new user friendly if you're doing this and you don't have a lot of XAML experience.
Yep. As a Photoshop fan, it actually kind of reminds me of Photoshop a little bit, where when you play around with typography and stuff, there's also a similar pop-up that gives you all like the kerning options and resizing, bold, italics, etc., all that jazz. So
yeah, we're definitely inspired by design tools, and we're users of design tools. I used to be a web developer, so I'm very familiar with F12 tools as well. So definitely we're gaining a lot of inspiration from that sort of environment here. All right, so here we are, I think, done with design time data. A little disappointed that one demo with sample item count didn't work, but it's okay. I'll have to sort out what happened there later. I'm sure it's my fault. When most demos fail, it's one of two things. Something on my machine, because I have I think 6 versions of Visual Studio installed. Right. Something like that could go wrong, or it's just me making a mistake. So good times.
Yeah, y'all, if only you guys saw our installation window. Like most of us probably have at least 3 instances of Visual Studio installed.
It starts off 3 to 5 with me usually, and then just builds up from there when some engineer will say, "Can you install this super special version?" Yeah. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden I have 17 versions of .NET on my machine, and it's all good times.
Exactly. I try to delete at least one personally anytime I get a new version. Like when VS 2022 came out, I was like, I need to get rid of one of the 2019s, like just one, but it's always so hard.
Yeah, but we definitely try to be able to repro things to customers. So I still have 2019 versions, 2022 versions. It's my reality here. At least one version behind on my machine. Right. All right, so I'm going to hit F5 here. Now we're going to switch over to what happens when your app is running and how can the XAML tooling we're building continue to help you, right? Mm-hmm. So here we now have the data loading. And so this is actually looking pretty good, right? Like it's similar to what we saw in our designer. We have the application starting, we have data loading, and we've made some changes. Like this wasn't bold before, now it is, and we fixed that before the app even got started. Yeah. So now that my app is running, I'm going to be looking to spot anything that might be broken. And one of the things that we've added here is something called the XAML binding failure window. So let me go ahead and dock that, and let's look at it alongside the application. So here I have a window that's specially designed to catch binding failures. Now, I don't even know if you noticed this when we started the app. In the real world scenario, I probably wouldn't have noticed for a while. The title's missing. Oh, it was there, right? It was there in the designer. It's not here now, but it's so easy to miss that. Mm-hmm. And traditionally, we'd have to go to output. This is what you had to do before. And you'd have to search, and you'd have to find this right here. That was fun.
Seems easy. Seems easy to find that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, when I used to be a full-time XAML developer and I used to build WPF apps for a living for many years, I would be in such a habit of neurotically checking my output window for these failures because, when this would happen and you don't notice it, this would be the only other place to notice. And when you have a complex app, something could fail down at the data template level. I mean, here it's a very simple example, but often it's something in here that's failing. So it's very, very frustrating. And this idea of window in Visual Studio that would show you binding failures is something that I was very passionate about, and luckily I became the program manager. So here we have it. We have a
Power.
window. The power, yes, I have the power. We can now visualize the binding failures right there for you. Not only do we visualize the binding failures, we can actually give you navigation to source. If you're using .NET 5 or above, and this button is here. Now, sometimes it's not here because you might be in an older version of .NET Framework, and unfortunately, navigation to source is not going to be available everywhere. And it's still not bad because you're still getting a pretty good description of the binding failure, where the context was. We're breaking that long text into something much more palatable. We're giving you line information in this case because we actually know the line number. But basically, this is much better than what it used to be. But now if you're using .NET 5 or above, it's even better. And by clicking on right here, it will take me to exactly where the failure is happening. So by clicking on it, I went straight to the line, the text block, and the property. And now I know, oh, okay, this looks wrong. This is probably not spelled correctly. Something isn't right here. And that's what's causing the binding to fail. So I'm going to go ahead and try to fix that. And this will segue me into another feature. I am not getting any IntelliSense here. Now, wouldn't it be nice if I got IntelliSense so that I could fix my spelling error? Now, we do have IntelliSense for you. In other words, like we know what properties could be bound there, but traditionally, it's not something we've shown. So we've added this new capability called MVVM design time data. So it's up here at the window level. It's really easy to just now click Control Dot, and it'll say to you, hey, do you want a design time data context? And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to hit enter. This adds this magical binding, design time binding to your view model. Oops, let me scroll back over there to show it to you. So it's basically going to create an instance of my view model, which the tooling is smart enough to realize you're using MVVM as a pattern. Now, you might not be, and in that case, you can ignore what I'm about to show you. But if you are using MVVM like I used to use on a lot of my projects, this is now going to be super helpful. So let's go back to that broken property. Let's see if this will take me back here. And I'm going to hit equals, and now I'm going to get IntelliSense. Now it's actually going to show me some stuff that it thinks I might be able to bind to. And here I'm going to say, okay, air quality title, right? In this case, that's what I want to bind to. And I'm going to go back to my application, and now I have a title coming in for binding. Perfect. So that kind of takes it end to end. Yeah. The only thing
I saw that typo earlier, and I was like, I don't know if he intended it to be that way or not. So
I'm glad you didn't say anything. It was totally, me trying to create a demo. So the one thing that we don't know, unfortunately, there's nothing that's going to tell us in the code today that will say that this binding error was fixed. It's just one of the limitations we're unfortunately having to deal with. So we have given you a button over here called delete or clear. So you can use either one to clear the binding failures. This way, as you continue to use the app, you're not looking at errors you've already fixed. So just be aware of that. You have to click this clear button because you've cleared the error. And now as you continue to use the application, if there's more errors, they'll show up. So if I go back in here and I break this again, it's going to come back, right? So you are going to see new errors. You're just not going to, unfortunately, we can't clear errors you've actually legitimately cleared. So at least we're giving you some way to get past that.
Are there plans to improve that?
It's complicated, unfortunately. So I think we're going to be stuck with these for a while.
Gotcha.
I wish we had a better answer. But I'm going to show one more thing because a lot of times it's not clear just how powerful this feature is. So we've created this little app, which basically all it does is break bindings. And I'm going to go ahead and let's close this for a second. I'm going to go in here and show you just like this is what a real world app could look like. I've been there where you have a ton of broken bindings at startup. Some bindings might have inner nested exceptions. Like we support all of it. Like we give you the ability to see all the binding failures, wherever source is available or isn't. We give you navigation, like here it's not available, here it is available. We let you see the full error. You can right click and you can copy the original error if that's something that you wanted to do. You can copy out the data. You can go to view source where possible. You can search this thing. So if I just care about day of week and I just want to filter the noise for a second, I can type it and it will let me filter. It lets me filter by any column. So if I type string, it'll filter to anywhere where the strings are failing as the target type. So it's very, very powerful capability. And I just like to show this for a few seconds just to make sure people know it's not just the super simple example I showed you, right? It's actually quite powerful feature. In our case, we only had one failure because I'm just that good of an engineer.
Yeah.
Tarantan. Good me. All right. So
Oh, is
now,
that quick
yeah.
question about the
Oh.
broken binding window basically. Is that a 17.1 feature? Is that like or is that already in VS 2022 GA?
Yeah, so this feature is something we added in 2019, and we've made sure that we continue to update it to make sure it works with new versions of frameworks. We've added support for WinUI, so we continue to work on it, but it's mostly about making sure that it continues to support platforms. And if people have something that we can really make better about the window, please let us know. I think so far, I've done some customer studies, and people have been very happy with what it is as a feature. The kind of things they've asked me for, the things that we can't easily do, like clearing the errors once they're fixed. I know everybody wants that. I want that too. It's just not a current reality that we can get done. It's actually technically very complicated to make that happen. But let us know what we can do better. This feature is stable, and pretty much everything I've shown so far is in 17.0. So if you just install the GA version that's currently in production for Dev 17, the features will be there.
Awesome. I think my personal wish list item is, if we can't like automatically clear them out, it might be kind of nice to get like a timestamp of some sort that like indicates when that broken binding was first indicated.
Detected.
So yeah, so if you're like me and you forget to clear it out when you rerun your application and stuff, it might be like a nice reference point to be like, how long ago was this issue thrown at me?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we definitely have the ability to add more columns, and I love that idea. And here we let you really customize which columns you see. So if, let's say, we ever add a date time, and you're not a fan of it, you can actually customize your way out of this feature. So we try to make sure that people can group things and show the columns that are useful to them. I know some people remove a lot of the columns because they don't think it's useful, and we remember the state. So you've inspired me to show another part of this feature. But yeah, it's a good idea. You're talking to the right person, so I will note it and see what my engineers think about that as well. Thank you.
Awesome. And then I got a couple other questions.
Yeah,
so,
go for it.
Regarding the data bindings with the IntelliSense that you recently showed, is that also a VS 2022 feature that's there right now?
Yeah, these features have been coming into VS over time since I think 16.4 or something like that. Like, I'd have to look at release notes, but we've been plugging away, adding one feature after the other. But now in this year with 2022 version of VS, we think we've hit a story arc, so to speak. Like, we've completed a lot of the features we had planned for many years now, and we're able to show a story that uses all of them together. So what I'm trying to show in this demo today is just like how well these features work together. And depending on which version you've been updating to, you might see one or two of these features light up, but only as of 2022 is when all of these features became available. In fact, I'm about to show a feature that's only available in VS 2022.
Ooh.
If that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And then before diving into that, when you're running your app, is that running without debugging, or were you running it with debugging attached?
Yeah, so for XAML experiences, everything that that is like related to, let's say, XAML hot reload, that requires the debugger. The next feature I'm about to show you requires the debugger. So the debugger is required for everything that we showed or about to show, with one exception, which I'll mention when we get there. And then things in the designer obviously don't care whether you're running, because they're not runtime experiences. So it's only things like XAML hot reload and XAML live preview, which I'm about to show, which do require the debugger today.
Great. Oh, one more question before we continue. Can all these features be used in Avalonia, also known as WPF2?
We test against WPF. We test against WinUI, and historically against UWP, and now Xamarin Forms in Maui. So that's our official test bed. I really can't tell you about Avalonia 100%. I know there's a great group of folks working in Avalonia, and when they have any concerns, they reach out to us. But it's a partnership in that sense. So that team will be the right folks to ask.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool. So continue our demo. These are great questions. Yeah, anytime we have questions, please interrupt me. So the next feature I want to show is, well, we've been sort of floating this app window on top of Visual Studio anytime I needed to show you what's happening inside of VS. And that's great for some things, and it's needed to interact with the application. But we've added one more feature, and this is the first feature that I'm showing you that's only been available in Visual Studio 2022. And that's the feature that will allow me to show the running application inside of Visual Studio. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. I'm going to say XAML Live Preview here in the quick search, and I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to enable the feature, which will actually show a slightly scaled version of the application inside of the Visual Studio window. Now, why this is super useful? This is super useful because of this experience on a single screen. Like if I'm having to switch back and forth between my app, it's very difficult. Docking, a client app, a lot of times real client apps are like this, right? They're full screen experiences. So it's almost impossible. You have to keep switching back and forth. And one of the things we wanted to do was to make it easier for folks to work with a client application. So here I have a client app that's, really full screen. And here we're showing it as if it was full screen, exactly the way you would expect, fully identical to the version of it that's running in full screen here inside of VS. And not only are we showing it, we allow full zooming control. So you can zoom in down to the pixel level. You can really zoom into a particular item. You can control, I'm holding control down. You can pan around it while holding control, and you can do zooming here. And it's a very, very powerful way to inspect your application visually, because a lot of times I can use Zoom It tools here. So I can switch here and I can use Zoom It to do something similar, right? I can even stop and I can draw some lines. That's great, but that's not great for when I need to actually do some design work. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back here, and now I want to do some design work on the app. That will require me to change the XAML, and XAML is hot reloadable. So when the app is running with the debugger, you can change the XAML. All right, let's take a look at what that looks like. So here, let's play around with this text block. So first of all, I'm just going to do something dumb. I'm just going to delete the title. But maybe you want to delete the title. Maybe you want to look like what the app looks like without the title. Now I can see that change without having to switch back to my application. I can put it back in, and now it's here. And now I can go ahead and say, well, what if I change the font size to 50? And then it allows me to see exactly what's happening without having to go back and forth between the applications. So XAML Live Preview is specifically for XAML apps. The reason why it's specifically for XAML apps is because it's an experience designed to enable you to change your XAML while looking at your application and not having to switch back and forth. And this is even pleasant on a widescreen display, because even on a widescreen display that I have here, even though I have a lot of space, it's still hard to get a full screen app and Visual Studio sort of to be together at the same time. So this gives you that experience and allows you full visibility in real time. If there was like an animation running here, you'd see the animation. It would be slightly slower. It's not 100% full frame rate, but for most applications, it's very, very reasonable. And if you have more than one window in your application, you can actually use this window selector to switch which window we're showing. My app only has a single window, but if you have like multiple windows, you can choose which one you're editing, and that works really well. Now, another really cool feature is this element selection idea. Now, we've had element selection inside of the product here. So if I go into the actual application here for a second, we've had this thing called the in-app toolbar on top, and this XAML Live Preview is now available as a button. So you could click this button to enable the view inside of VS. But we've often had this element selection here, but now we also have it here, which means that I can do element selection and I can highlight things. And just like F12 tools, not only am I getting element selection that is doing the overlay around the element that I'm selecting, but it's also giving me some information about the element, like F12 tools would give you. It gives you margins, fonts, background color, it tells you the type, where it lives, it's giving you a bunch of information. And then if I click on it, it's doing element selection inside of the XAML. So now you have a full one-to-one connection between what you want to edit, the thing that you're editing. So let's say I want to try a different color. I can change all of these to gray, and do whichever changes that I wanted to do. Right inside of here, we even have a little color visualizer nowadays. So it's a very powerful connection between the live app and here. And on top of that, we have something called rulers. This is again something unique to Live Preview. So I'm going to go ahead and add rulers. I'm going to add 2 rulers, and I'm going to go and put the rulers right here. Now, why am I doing that? Maybe I know that about 55, let's pick an imaginary number, right? So I'm going to say about 55. Let's try to make it 55. Okay, 56, good enough. Close enough to what I'm going to do. So now I want to be able to show my value to be margined out sufficiently that it's on this line, right? Before, how would I do that? I'd use third-party tools. I had one developer tell me, and I'm not joking, I did a customer study, that they put sticky notes on their monitor to like figure out where alignment should be of things. And that's just not great. I mean, there are tools, but this person was like, yeah, I don't need a tool. I just put stickies in my monitor. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So yeah, no stickies necessary. Rulers are amazing. You can add as many rulers as you want. You can drag them around. You can change their color. If they're fading out in your application, you can select and delete the ruler that you've added. So it's very powerful to allow you to do redlining type experience. And now I'm going to put all of this together. I'm going to do the element selection to select the element. I'm going to go and I'm going to zoom out to where the margin is. So let's start playing around with margins. So 10, 10, 10, that's not right. I always forget which margin is which. So that's I think that's about right. Okay, cool. So before it was 5 everywhere else. So that's, I think, pretty good now, right? We've got, yeah, everything looks aligned. All of these values are coming in nice. We've got about 10 out. So that's more or less what my designer wanted. People probably won't even notice if it's 1 pixel off, but hey, my app looks better. And now if I switch to the real app, it's showing you the real app just, matching exactly, because it really is the real app. Like if I hit refresh here, you see it's flickering a little bit. That's probably a bug I should fix, but it's flickering on both sides, right? It's if I collapse this in-app toolbar, it's collapsing in here. So it's very powerful, but you can interact. If I try to double click on a button, nothing happens inside of the live preview surface. And it's not a designer, but it gives you a lot of capability. So we're really excited about this feature. We think it adds a ton of value. And as I'm showing it to you, I am starting to realize that we have another bug to show. Dun, 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 dun. So another bug in the real application is this really long city name string, right? That's repeating over and over. And this is mock data, but I know I've created mock city data. But so why is it showing me that? All right, let's go investigate. I'm gonna not stop running the application. I'm just gonna go ahead to my air quality service, and now I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger, customize for the new task at hand. So here's my fake data source, and as you can see, I did something that I've done in the real world. I've actually mirrored this example by something I've done in real life on a real project. Is I would leave a to-do by accident of something I was just testing inside of my code. Now imagine if it took you something like 5 minutes to build your app. Imagine that it took you another minute to log into your application and navigate to the screen. And now you get there and you're like, damn it, I can't believe I left this in there. Now I need to restart my app. I need to shut down, very annoying. So let's use a new feature called .NET Hot Reload. So .NET Hot Reload is a feature we've added to Visual Studio. It's a Visual Studio experience. It's available both in Visual Studio and the .NET Watch tool if you're using .NET 6. But today is all about VS, so we'll focus on that. And this gives you truly the best experience because Visual Studio has always had a debugger, that's very powerful. You can hit a breakpoint here to see if this really is the code that's running. So let's go ahead and
was a thing.
Yeah. So we're gonna hit this breakpoint, and then edit and continue was a thing. So you can now change things while at this breakpoint. You can move the position. So all of that still works, and it works with the new thing I'm going to show you. And the new thing is, and I'm going to just close this window view here. The new thing is the fact that you don't need to use breakpoints anymore. If you just want to change code and see what happens after you change the code, you can just go ahead and strip this code out, get to a point where your C# is valid, and now you can use this magical button up here in the user interface called Hot Reload to apply the change. And what this will do is it will actually try to patch your running application while it's running. So I'm going to go ahead and click the button, and I'm going to go back to the application. Now, nothing changed in the app, right? Like, what did I do? Let's recap. I removed some code. I pressed the button. The button did something. Okay, great. What did it do? Well, let's look at our output window. We have something called Hot Reload inside of output. So I did a Hot Reload operation against the WPF app, and the operation was successful. Okay, that's great. why am I not seeing any change? That's because we're not going to run code for you, right? This code that we updated it needs to re-execute. And that's the one kind of like generic, not generic, but like the one thing about the workflow around hard reload, .NET hard reload that you should know. It's different than XAML hard reload. When you're changing XAML, it changes in real time because XAML is a markup language that builds UI. So you change a margin, we change the margin. We know your intent right away. As soon as your margin value is healthy, like if you put XY into margin, we don't change the XAML. But if you put 5 instead of 10, we change it because we know it's a valid value. But we can't do that with code. Code needs to have a good reason to execute. It needs to execute in the way the app intends to execute it. So there's no arbitrary way for us to run the code for you. But in my case, I have a button. The button is going to trigger that code. So I'm going to press the button, and there you go, like magic. The app has the correct values for city, exactly what I would expect it to have. And I never had to shut down. I didn't have to relog in. I didn't have to do like all the millions of things, right, that you would normally have to do with. Yeah, exactly. So that's the power of this feature. And the feature works in a couple of ways. I'll point out a few things about it. So the feature, this is one thing that actually is available without the debugger. Not for every type of app, but for WPF, it certainly works without the debugger. So if you had this bug when running Control F5, in that case, you don't have breakpoints, you don't have edit and continue, but hard reload would still be available. And another thing that we've added as an opt-in value is this checkbox right here, hard reload on save. So you have two options, well, three options. You can use the shortcut key, which is Alt F10. I know you're going to say, Dimitri, wait a second, where's the tooltip? Right. Yeah, we fixed that. Sorry about it. Yeah, we missed that in the first release. It's coming in 17.1, but Alt F10 is definitely there. Here you go. The Alt F10, yeah, it's in the menu, but we forgot to add it here. So we fixed it. Thank you for the people that told us about it, gave us the feedback. We will listen to your feedback. We make mistakes. So you can press Alt F10 to apply the code changes. You could hit the button, or you could turn on save. And now if I put this back and I just press Control Save, hard reload told me right here that it worked. So let's go back in, and now I have the broken state again because it hard reloaded. So the feature, we're trying to give you a lot of control over how you use the feature. There's settings. If something isn't working for you, please let us know. But we do give you the ability to disable, enable things. It's only grayed out right now because I'm not running the application. So if I wasn't running, then I would see it. So that's a cool feature. And this is not just about WPF developers, right? Let's go to another instance of VS that I have open here. Demo gods be with me once again. So let's start this Blazor server app. I'm using a 17.1 preview. Again, this is very close to what you can get in the public preview. 17.1 is not probably that far off from release. So it's a release that's almost baked. And here I'm gonna just dock side by side because it's easier for me to show what I want to show. So here we have a counter. This is again a very far from a WPF app. And in this counter, we have Razor, and we have a Razor page. It's exactly what you expected. Counter version 2.0. So now I'm going to change some HTML. I'm going to hit Control Save to save the code, and it's just updated, right? That's pretty cool. Hard reload for updating this stuff. Okay, let me really push the demo gods. Let me go change some CSS. Oh no, Dimitri is really gonna mess it up. So size. And now I'm going to say, I don't know, large. Let's use larger. I love CSS. I missed you so much. So we're gonna save larger, and you can see how it's changing on the right. Let's go smaller. So it is actually making changes in real time. Let's go to something stupid. Let's just delete this whole thing. Let's put it back. You can see the whole app is like slightly changing on the right. So we have CSS hard reload. We have the ability to change the HTML inside of this page here. And then now we have code, right? So we have some code that's incrementing a counter. So once again, we can just go ahead and change that code to decrease the counter. Yeah, without having to go. Now we can do something even funner. Let's do, this is all about increment by number. Let's do that. So now we're gonna make a new method. It's gonna return an int. The int is going to set the value, and we're going to pass it int count. This isn't going to be great code, but we'll get the point across.
Why not?
It's all right. Yeah, why not?
But that's what's exciting about having features like Hot Reload. It gives you more room for experimentation, just to play around instead of getting frustrated with the time it takes to just run something up after a quick change like this. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to create some new methods. You want to add some fun to your application. So let's do that. And now we're going to be incrementing by 5s, right? It's all working. And then if you wanted to use the features such as breakpoints, here's the breakpoint is still here for you. You have the count, you have the amount. You can still do all the things you're used to doing inside of the debugger. And the beautiful thing is this also works without the debugger. Blazor, ASP.NET, Web API, WPF, Windows Forms, console applications, lots of different apps support the ability to do hot reload when you're just using Control F5 or even the .NET CLI, but they all require .NET 6. So you need to update to .NET 6 in order to use hot reload with some of these modes. But if you're using an older version of .NET, because a lot of us do have apps that are older and they just for good reason can't or should not be updated, or people just don't have the time, we've made hot reload work for those customers in many cases without updating through the debugger. But there are limitations, and this is where I'm going to just show a couple of slides to end our conversation here. This will just make it easier. I can make sure that I don't forget anything. Let's shut this down real quick.
I think after your slides, we got a couple questions in chat that we can do a lightning round.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do it. So I'm just going to show you literally probably like 2 or 3 slides, nothing crazy. But I just want to point out that we've basically added support for hot reload to both Core CLR and Mono runtime. You have to be on .NET 6. Mono has the least amount of edits to be supported because it had the least amount of technology investment in that area, and we've just started to invest. So we've added some basic method body replacement that allows you to change the method of a body, but there's still quite a lot of limitations, and every .NET release, we're going to try to lower those limitations. But if you're using Core CLR and .NET 6 together, you have the broadest set of edit capabilities. We support all of these scenarios as examples with a few places where it says .NET 6. So if you want to edit Razor pages, if you want CSS hot reload, Blazor or Maui, you're going to have to update to .NET 6. But if you're working on WPF, WinUI, Windows Forms, console apps, and you've got like .NET Framework versions, or you have .NET 5, yes, this stuff will still work for you. So it really depends on kind of the project that you're targeting. We have documentation, which actually goes through all of these scenarios and gives you the indications of what works where. So you just Google hot reload, Docs, Visual Studio, you'll find that really easily. And then we have limitations. We have certain things that don't work. So if your app turned on trimming or ready to run, or if you're not running it in the debug configuration, if you've turned on mixed mode debugging for some reason, there's basically a bunch of reasons why hot reload is not going to be available. So this slide is, again, a summary of documentation, which goes through and talks about the fact that we do have some limitations. Xamarin Forms, F#, .NET Native, those are scenarios where you're just not going to get .NET hot reload. Xamarin customers will still get XAML hot reload, but similar name, very different technology under the hood. And I just want to point out that these are some really good things to know. We're making things better in 17.1. And then I'm going to switch to the very last slide, which has a bunch of links. If you want to take a screenshot of this, of these links right here, these are the three great places to learn a lot more about hot reload, see longer demos in different from our events and stuff like that. All right, question time.
Yeah, exciting stuff. I mean, shoot, yeah, that is really exciting, and it makes me want to write more XAML applications like immediately. Just knowing a lot of the headaches are kind of removed just from a sheer time perspective, especially.
Yeah, so, it's fun. Like I tell you, I have fun writing XAML a lot lately. I write a lot of sample apps and test things for customers, and it's just delightful to have this full end-to-end experience. And I really like what delights me is that I actually use the tools that I helped build, as a PM. And they're actually quite helpful. And we have such an amazing engineering team that wrote all the code, did all the hard work, and these features are very stable, very tested, and we constantly monitor for feedback. So when things do break, we're here for you folks.
Yeah, that is exciting stuff. And again, as a Photoshop fan, it's really exciting to see stuff like the rulers and the margin stuff, especially. Like that's something I use all the time when I'm doing like graphic design just on the side. And it like works the same way where you just drag from a ruler standpoint and then just set your margins wherever and then you can align however you like without having to use post-its. So that's great.
Yeah, rulers are very powerful. Yeah, it's a very, very powerful tool.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we got some questions in the chat. So first question a while back was what we were using a WPF solution, which it looked like it was. Somebody specifically asked if it was a WPF2 solution, but it was just good old WPF.
Yeah.
Couple questions about just WPF in general. First being, can we compile a WPF app using ahead of time compilation? If yes, how can we do it?
Yeah, these are good questions, but I don't have all of this in my head. I think I've been at least in 2 meetings recently where this topic has come up, but I just don't, it's all a big jumble. I'm not the PM for WPF, the platform. There is a bunch of people that work on WPF here at Microsoft. It's something we continue to work on. If there are particular questions that people want answers to that I can't answer, just tweet at me or send me a direct message on Twitter. That's a really great place to reach me. So it's lyland.com, spelled out all the words. So it should be my bottom here. So you reach out to me, and if I say I don't know, but I can find out, that's a hint to send me a message, and I'll go find out for you.
Yeah, we're all pretty accessible, or at least those of us with Twitter handles. Don't hesitate to reach out. Yeah, because a similar question would be, how do we use or implement internationalization in WPF? So I'm sure.
It's a whole big topic. I mean, I've had to implement stuff like that in my what I call my past life when I used to be a full-time WPF developer. WPF has been around for a very long time. It's very flexible. I'm sure it's possible to do what you're looking to do. And I would try Google, try Stack Overflow. I mean, most of these questions will be answered there today.
Yep. When we were talking about stuff where Hot Reload was not compatible, is it compatible with Visual Basic?
Yeah, so we support Visual Basic. So let's say you have a lot of customers have WinForms app, which were VB. I used to be a WinForms developer. There's probably an app somewhere at a bank still running using VB. That's WinForms that I helped design and build with my own hands, so to speak. Banks tend to run their apps forever. So that, yeah, if you're one of those customers, yes, Hot Reload will work for you. We've tried to make Hot Reload be available anywhere where edit and continue is available. And that's really one of the main reasons why F# doesn't have it, because edit and continue mechanism was never supported for F#. So to add that support is actually quite expensive, but for VB, it's there. If you have issues using Hot Reload with VB, please let us know. We file feedback. Reach out to me on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. But yes, it should be supported.
Awesome. Next question. Does track value source support XAML data binding?
Track value source. I guess I'm struggling with the language there. If we're talking about the binding failure kind of example, in that case, if you're running .NET 5 or higher, we track the source of that failure, if that's what it's meant. Again, if I'm misunderstanding, follow the previous instructions, ping me on Twitter, I'll try to answer it.
Cool. All right, next up, is there a guide to creating extensions for XAML? I feel like I should do that question too. As an extension person.
I mean, it depends what's meant by that. Extensions for XAML, is it a Visual Studio extensions? Visual Studio is very extendable. WPF itself, I mean, it's open source, but I don't know what the person is trying to do exactly, what they're trying to extend.
I'm interpreting this as a wanting to expand the feature set that XAML already has specifically. So just like creating an extension that adds to the XAML tool set in some capacity. I don't know what that is, but yeah, if you want to ping me about it, because myself or my team might know with some quick research, feel free to tweet me about it. What do the kids call it? Tweet? Yeah.
Tweet at us.
Yeah. All right. Next question. What would be your recommendation for a good WPF book?
I have no idea. I have not owned a software engineering book in a very long time. I know that that's going to shock a lot of people out there, but it's just that's my life. I'm a program manager for quite a bit of time now, and I kind of learned from the internet. So, the last thing I learned, I went through two different Pluralsight courses. That's been a really good way for me to learn. I find a lot of times documentation has gotten a lot better, and between the community on Twitter, Stack Overflow, the fact that I have amazing Microsoft engineers to bother really allows me to cheat and reach out to to people that know what they're doing and give me the answers. So not sure about WPF book. I know there's been a lot of good books out there over the years. Again, like a lot of these questions, folks, try searching for them. Like a person like me isn't going to have all the answers. I don't work on every part of WPF. WPF is a very large product. There's the team that owns the framework itself, a team that owns the tooling experiences in Visual Studio that I sit in, and then we're connected to language services and lots of other caveats. But in the past, I've definitely had good experience with WPF books. It's just been such a long time. I really am sorry I don't have that information anymore.
No worries. But yeah, Dimitri has connections though. So if you do have a question for like the WPF specific experts, you can always ping Dimitri. I mean, I bet he knows a person
Yes.
or two who might be able to help you out.
That's the good thing. Like here on this live stream, I'm like, I don't know, but if you ping me on Twitter, I can follow up and I can be like, okay, hey, bunch of people I know, do you have any books that are still around that are good references? And I can try to get you an answer. I really will try. Just sorry I can't answer on the live stream here.
Yep. Going back to XAML specific questions,
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible now to create XAML snippets with placeholders?
I know this wasn't asked. I don't remember what we did with it. I know who to ask. I know the right engineer owner, but I don't have it in my head. The thing to note is that if we have never talked about it in release notes, then we probably never did it. So we've been pretty good about making sure that things get into Visual Studio release notes. So dig for those. Search for the word snippets and use Google to target Visual Studio domain and release notes specifically, and you should be able to get a good answer for it. On top of that, it's pretty easy to try. So give it a shot on the product. Again, sorry, I feel like a lot of these questions are going into things I didn't show, and that's always going to be a challenge for me. There's so much to know.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, XAML is a huge space, and then everything adjacent to it is also huge when it's associated with like WPF and UWP and all that jazz. So
yeah. Like if you were to tweet that question at me, I would open up VS and I would go try it.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot of times I get my answers. I'm like, let me try the product, let me try a couple of versions, let me look at release notes. I forget myself which version of stuff. People ask me, which version is this available in? And I'm like, at some version, I don't know, it was a year ago, let me go take a look. But the answers are out there. Don't give up. I'm so excited that people are still passionate about WPF to have these questions. It's still a great technology, and WinUI is really coming along great. Like if you're a WPF developer, you really should be taking a look at that as well. And then for cross-platform Maui, we're so excited to get Maui out there. I work in the Maui team as well. I wear a couple of hats here, and we're really bringing all of this XAML goodness to cross-platform devices and Android, iOS, Mac OS. Like the future is so bright for your skill set. I really hope you'll keep using it with us.
Yeah. And because we're short on time, I'm going to ask one more question from chat. So will XAML Designer support WinUI 3 soon?
No. That's feedback that needs to go to the WinUI team. I'm not trying to like shove it off on them, but it's just truly who owns the answer to that question. The WinUI team would need to make some investments, and they need to do a lot of things for WinUI, so they have only limited resources, and the designer is something that's just not been prioritized. You can let them know via the GitHub issues, or reach out to their PMs who are also on Twitter. Reach out to me and I can add them to the thread or whatever. So we can definitely get the feedback to the right people. But right now, as far as I know, there's no internal roadmap that I've seen that to be a priority on. I love the designer. I've been the designer PM in my past life. I've shown you great designer features that we've added, but unfortunately, WinUI isn't there yet. That's a really good point.
Gotcha. And then my final question is, what can we expect to see from XAML in like 17.1 and beyond?
Yeah, 17.1 right now is and 17.2. So I can talk about like the next two releases. One of the big rocks that I'm moving is the ability to have a really good experience when it comes to XAML hard reload and .NET hard reload together. There's a few edge cases today which are quite painful. I'll give you an example. If you are using an MVVM style of application construction and you add a new property to your view model with .NET hard reload, we support that. But then if you try to use that property from XAML hard reload at runtime, it's not going to work. So we're fixing stuff like that. So we're doing a bunch of behind the scenes work to make those two technologies, XAML hard reload and .NET hard reload, work well together. And that's actually quite an expensive exercise. We're working across multiple teams to get it done. We're also fixing many bugs and trying to improve experiences. And 17.2 will have a lot more things in it, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I'm not ready to announce it yet. But really, hard reload is where a lot of our energy is going. And there's a big team that I'm only a small part of. So there'll be other things. I'm just talking to you about things I know. But there's more out there. Olia is another PM of ours. She's working on other features too, and it's exciting time.
Yes, it is. Great. Well, that's all the time that we have. So thank you so much, Dimitri, for coming. This was a very informative session on XAML, and clearly a lot of people are curious about it, and I hope everyone goes and tries it out. And if you still have questions, feel free to ping either myself or Dimitri. Our Twitter handles are below. And yeah, I don't know. Did you have anything else, Dimitri? Have you completed that Rubik's Cube behind you? A lot of people have been asking that too. Yeah.
So my wife gave that to me as a gift, and I completed it once, and that was it. It's fun. I'm looking forward to annoying my toddler with it at some point, having him try to figure it out. But he's not quite there yet either.
I remember when I got one as a kid, and I remember just staring at it in its complete form for like a good hour or so before scrambling it, because I knew I'd never see it like that again. So
Oh yeah, I've had one as a kid. I enjoyed it a lot more when I was younger. So I think it's a matter of like, I'm just not a puzzle person, to be honest with you. A lot of people I know are puzzle people. I can do a puzzle once, but after that I just go crazy.
Yeah, I love puzzles, but not Rubik's Cube puzzles. Like I'm more of a Sudoku, nonogram, pictogram kind of gal.
Yeah, even more nuance in the puzzle question.
Exactly. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming, Dimitri. And I mean, I'm sure we'll see you on the show again soon. You're a repeat offender on the show. So
yeah, you can call me. I love it. I'm a repeat offender. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for watching, y'all.